He realized this at 63. Don't make the same mistake. At 63 years old, standing in an empty house that suddenly felt too big, John finally understood what he'd been doing wrong his entire life. But by then, the people he loved most had already moved on. Don't let this happen to you. I need to tell you about John because his story might save you from years of heartache and regret. When I met him, he was sitting alone in his living room, surrounded by expensive furniture and awards from a successful career. But there was something hollow in his eyes, something broken. And as he began to talk, I realized I was hearing one of the most important lessons anyone could ever learn about life. John had done everything right according to society's standards. He built a thriving business from scratch. He provided well for his family. He owned a beautiful home in a nice neighborhood. His children went to good schools and never wanted for anything material. On paper, he was a success story, but at 63, after his wife asked for a divorce and his adult children barely called him anymore, John finally saw the truth he'd been blind to for decades. He told me about a specific moment that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and he was sitting in his office going through old emails when he came across a message from his daughter. It was from 8 years earlier. She had invited him to her college poetry reading. He remembered getting that email. He remembered thinking he would try to make it if his meeting finished early. But the meeting ran long, as meetings always did, and he never went. He sent her a text saying he was sorry and that he'd make the next one. Except there never was a next one. She stopped inviting him. As John sat there reading that old email, something clicked in his mind. He started going through more messages, more memories, his son's baseball games that he missed, the anniversary dinners his wife stopped planning because he always had to reschedule, the family vacations that kept getting postponed until everyone stopped asking, the Sunday breakfasts that turned into him grabbing coffee alone because everyone else had made other plans. He realized that he hadn't just missed a few events, he had missed everything. He had missed his life. But here's what really devastated John. It wasn't that he'd been a bad person. He hadn't been cruel or neglectful in any obvious way. He'd always believed he was doing the right thing. Every time he chose work over family, he told himself it was for them. He was building security. He was creating opportunities. He was being responsible. And he genuinely believed that once he reached a certain level of success, once he had enough money saved, once the business was stable, then he would have time for everything else. Then he would be the husband and father he always meant to be. The problem was that then never came. There was always another goal, another milestone, another challenge that needed his attention. And while he was chasing these moving targets, his children were growing up without him. His wife was building a life that didn't include him. His parents grew old and passed away while he was too busy to visit as often as he meant to. The relationships he thought would always be there, waiting for him whenever he was ready, had quietly withered and died. John told me about the moment he truly understood what he'd lost. It was at his daughter's wedding, which happened just before his marriage fell apart. He was sitting at the reception, watching her dance with her new husband, and she looked so happy, so radiant. But when the father-daughter dance came, there was an awkwardness between them. They barely knew each other. He realized he couldn't remember the last real conversation he'd had with her. He didn't know her favorite books, or what she dreamed about, or what made her laugh. He was her father, but he was essentially a stranger who wrote checks and showed up for major events. During that dance, she was polite and smiled for the cameras, but he could feel the distance between them. It was a distance he had created, one missed moment at a time. And standing there on what should have been one of the happiest days of his life, John felt a grief so profound he could barely breathe. He had been given the gift of this amazing person to love and know, and he'd squandered it. He'd traded it for meetings and deals and things that now seemed completely meaningless. What makes John's story so important is that it's not unique. I've heard versions of it hundreds of times from people who wake up in their 60s and 70s and suddenly realize they've been living the wrong life. They've been playing a game they didn't even want to win, and by the time they figure it out, the people they love have moved on. John's wife explained it to him during one of their last conversations before the divorce. She said she'd spent years trying to get his attention, trying to make him see that she needed him, not his money or his success, but him. She'd planned special dinners that he'd been too tired to enjoy. She'd suggested trips that he'd been too busy to take. She'd tried to talk to him about her day, her feelings, her dreams, but he was always distracted, always thinking about work. Eventually, she stopped trying. She found fulfillment in friendships, hobbies, and eventually in the idea of a life without him. By the time John realized what was happening, she had already emotionally left the marriage. His son was even more direct. When John tried to reconnect after the divorce, tried to explain that he wanted to be more involved now, his son looked at him with something like pity and said, "Dad, I needed you when I was 10. I needed you when I was 15. I don't need you anymore. I figured out how to live without you a long time ago." Those words shattered something in John. He had spent decades building a business, thinking he had time to build relationships later. But relationships don't work that way. You can't put them on hold and expect them to be there when you're finally ready. Now, I want you to really think about this because it's easy to hear John's story and think it won't happen to you. Maybe you're telling yourself that you're different, that your situation is different, that you have good reasons for being busy right now. And maybe you do. But that's exactly what John thought. That's what everyone thinks until they end up sitting alone at 63, wondering where everyone went. The truth is that most of us are making the same mistake John made, just in smaller ways. We're choosing the urgent over the important. We're saying yes to things that don't matter and no to things that matter most. We're living as if we have infinite time to get around to the people we love, when the reality is that time is running out faster than we realize. Think about your own life right now. How often do you tell your spouse you'll talk later because you're busy? How many times have your children or grandchildren wanted your attention and you've been on your phone or thinking about work? When was the last time you called your parents just to chat or visited a friend just because you enjoy their company? How many invitations have you declined? How many moments have you missed? How many conversations have you postponed? Each one of these seems insignificant in the moment. Missing one dinner, one game, one phone call doesn't feel like a big deal. But John's story teaches us that these moments add up. They're like drops of water wearing away stone. Each missed opportunity creates a tiny crack in the relationship, and over time, those cracks become canyons. Here's what John wishes he'd understood earlier. Every time you choose something over someone, you're sending a message about what matters to you. You might not mean to send that message, you might have the best intentions. But intentions don't build relationships. Presence does. Attention does. Consistency does. And when you're consistently absent, consistently distracted, consistently choosing other things, the message comes through loud and clear, no matter what words you use. John also learned something else, something that might be even more painful. You can't get the time back. You can apologize. You can try to make amends. You can change your behavior going forward. But you can't undo the years of absence. You can't relive your children's childhood. You can't recapture the early years of your marriage. You can't bring back parents who have passed away. The moments you miss are gone forever, and no amount of regret can retrieve them. This is why John's story is so urgent. Because right now, today, you still have time. The people you love are still here. The opportunities to connect still exist. But they won't exist forever. Your children are growing older every day. Your parents are aging. Your spouse is building their life with or without you. Your friends are moving on. And every day you wait, every day you prioritize other things, you're moving closer to becoming John, sitting alone and wondering what happened, So, what changed for John after his realization? He tried to rebuild. He really did. He cut back his work hours dramatically. He reached out to his children regularly. He went to therapy to understand his patterns. He started saying no to work obligations and yes to relationship opportunities. But here's the hard truth. Some damage is very difficult to repair. His children were polite but distant. They had their own lives now, lives that had been built without him, and adding him in felt forced and awkward. His ex-wife had moved on. She'd found peace and didn't want to revisit the pain of their marriage. John did manage to build something new with his kids over several years of consistent effort. It's not what it could have been, but it's something. He sees his grandchildren sometimes, though not as often as he'd like. He's dating someone new, and this time he's trying to be different, trying to be present. But he carries the weight of those lost years every single day. He looks at his friends who have close relationships with their adult children, who have long, happy marriages, and he feels the sting of what he missed. The lesson from John's life isn't that work doesn't matter or that ambition is wrong. It's about balance and priority. It's about recognizing that success without relationship is not success at all. It's about understanding that you can always make more money, but you can't make more time. You get one chance at each moment, each day, each stage of your loved ones' lives. Miss it, and it's gone. John told me something near the end of our conversation that I think about often. He said, "I thought I was building a legacy with my business, but a real legacy is the relationships you leave behind, the love you shared, the memories you created with the people who mattered. My business will be sold or will close eventually, and no one will remember or care. But my kids will remember that I wasn't there. That's the legacy I actually created, and I would give anything to change it. Don't wait until you're 63 to figure this out. Don't wait until the people you love have moved on emotionally. Don't wait until you're sitting alone in a house full of achievements that mean nothing, surrounded by the ghosts of missed opportunities. Learn from John's mistake. Make different choices. Choose people over things. Choose presence over productivity. Choose relationships over resume builders. Start today. Right now. Put down whatever you're doing and think about the 3 most important people in your life. When was the last time you really connected with them? Not a quick text or a surface-level conversation, but real connection. If it's been too long, change that today. Make the call, schedule the visit, have the conversation, show up and be fully present. And then keep doing it. Make it a pattern, not a one-time thing. Build rhythms of connection into your life. Weekly date nights with your spouse, regular phone calls with your parents, one-on-one time with each of your children, coffee with old friends. These don't have to be elaborate or expensive. They just have to be consistent and genuine. Also, when you're with people, be with them. Put your phone away. Turn off the part of your brain that's thinking about work. Look them in the eyes. Listen to what they're saying. Ask questions. Show interest. Be present in body and mind and spirit. These moments of true presence are what build intimacy and create the kind of relationships that will sustain you through life. And please, don't fall into the trap of thinking you have time. Don't tell yourself you'll do it later, after this project, after you retire, when things calm down. Things never calm down. There will always be another demand on your time. The question is what you choose to prioritize. John thought he had time. Everyone thinks they have time. Until suddenly, they don't. I think about John's face when he talked about that father-daughter dance. The pain in his eyes when he described his son saying he didn't need him anymore. The quiet devastation when he admitted that he'd traded the most important things in life for things that ultimately didn't matter at all. And I think about how preventable all of it was. How different his life could have been if he'd made different choices earlier. If he'd understood at 30 or 40 or 50 what he finally learned at 63. You have the chance to avoid his mistakes. You can choose differently. You can decide today that relationships matter more than achievements, that presence matters more than productivity, that the people you love deserve your best time and attention, not just your leftovers. You can build a life that you'll look back on with satisfaction and peace, knowing that you invested in what truly mattered. Or you can keep going the way you're going, telling yourself you'll get to it later, that there's time, that everyone understands how busy you are. And maybe you'll be lucky. Maybe everyone will still be there when you finally decide to prioritize them. But maybe they won't. Maybe, like John, you'll wake up one day and realize that while you were busy building a life, you missed actually living it. Don't make John's mistake. Don't wait until 63. Don't wait until it's too late. The people you love need you now. They want you now. And one day, sooner than you think, now will be gone. Make sure that when that day comes, you can look back without the devastating regret that John carries. Make sure you can say that you loved well, that you showed up, that you were present. Because in the end, that's all that really matters.